So, welcome to 2025. Um, we are going to continue from where we stopped. We are dealing with this box model in CSS, and this is how CSS, view or see all your elements. So every element you have on the page, they have this common property related to all of them. We've talked about the margin, which is the spacing outside of the box, whether it is text or it is image or it is any other element that we've talked about. So CSS, they are just box, and these boxes have the properties that you can apply, or that you can change some of this property on that particular box. And one of the property here is the margin, which is talking about the spacing outside of the box. For example, like this H1 now, it is box. And this H1 here now, we can change the spacing outside of it. For example, here, going back to the CSS file that we have been working with. So here, instead of having this P, I'll change it to H1. I mean, increase the screen. So change it to H1 and save, and you see that on the page there is a box around that text, because this is how CSS sees everything that you have on a page. And this box now, we now have some of these properties that you can apply on that box. One of the property here is this margin, and as you can see, there is this white space outside of this box here. So this white space here, or the spacing that you can see by the left, the top, the right, and the bottom, we call it the margin. Why the one that is inside the box? Because now this text or the content that is inside the box, they are close to the edge of this box. What if you want to give it the space, like we don't want the box to be jam packed with the content, then we can use padding to give space inside the box. And we talked about different ways of applying margin. Some of these property here, you can apply them to the four side of the box, where you have the top, you have the right, the bottom, and the left. And as you can see, there are different properties under the margin that you can use to change any side, or to change all of them at once, which is what I want to do right now. So I'm going to be using 2rem here, and it means this box now is going to have that space around the box. So here we're going to have 2, this is 2, this is 2, and this is 2. But what if we want the spacing to be inside the box? We can use our padding, which is going to apply the space inside the box. So instead of the spacing to be outside now, it is now inside the box. So another thing that we talked about there is the border. So the border here is a tiny line around the edge of the box. So the border is always around the edge of this box, and by default some of these elements, their border is turned off by default, while some of them they have it. For example, look at this input. This line here is what we call border. So if you only see it on the input by default, the same thing too, you only see it on the button by default, but you can apply it to any element where you want to use that line. So, and you can change it too, or modify the one that you have on the button. For example, here I can select the button on the page and change the border. But don't forget, when you're dealing with the border, this is a shorthand property that you use to apply some of these other properties that is related to border. So other property that is related to border is the column. What is the color of that border? What is the width of that border? Which is the thickness of the border? Another thing that you can use here is the style of the border, which we've talked about a lot of them. As you can see from here, we talked about where you are applying all of them at once, where you have the width, the style, and the color. Or if you want, you can mention each one of them separately. It's still going to work, but I always go with this pattern because it's kind of a short there compared to you repeating the border width, border style, and border color on a separate line. So you can do it and it's still going to work. For example, here, this is our button now. You can change the border to green. So here I want it to have this thickness, or the width of it should be 2 pixels. So the style is going to be solid, which is what is there by default. And again, if you don't change the color, it's still going to maintain the black color that is there. But if I want, I can change it to green color. Now the border has been increased, and at the same time we have the color of green instead of applying the one that is there before. And if I want, I can change the style to anything else that I want. Instead of the line to be solid, now the line is now dotted on the page. So the border allows you to change the line around the box. It's not just for button or the input that I can use this for. Any element can have border. So instead of me using this, I can change it back to my H1, and you see that it's going to have that color, but this green is not showing on the blue, so we can use red, which is going to come out on the blue color. Or if you want, we can reduce this blue to this type of blue, and we're going to have that line on the stuff. But instead of me calling 280 H1 like this, you can just put everything together instead of separating them in this way. This is the same thing, or the same element that we're talking to through this selector. Again, another thing that we talk about is the border radius, which control the curve around the edge of the box. So like this input right now, if you look at it, this input is not really that four corner. As you can see, there is this kind of a tiny curve around the edge. The same thing with the button too. These are default settings that you get from the browser that you are using, but you can actually control that curve around the box. So depending on the element you are working with, you can change it. For example, this is our input. We don't want it to have that tiny one. We want it to have more curve at the edge. So we can use border radius. And here, this is a short-term property too, because when you're dealing with your box, there is always four sides. When you're dealing with border radius, we have four edge. So it works with edge. This is the top left edge. We have the top right, we have the bottom right, and we have the bottom left. So with this border radius, you can change all of them at once when you give it one value, or when you give it two value, this and this will be X, while this and this will be Y. And the way it works is starting from here. So it will distribute the value. X will go to this, Y will go to this. But you know that the opposite side, they are going to take from the this one now, they are going to take from their opposite side. But I'm not going to do that because I've explained in the previous video, so you can check it. Here I'm just going to use one RM, and it's going to apply the same thing around the edge of the box. So our input now is having this radius, or apply it on this H1, it's still going to do the same thing, because every element on the page to CSS, they are just box, and it can change them like that. So another thing that we talked about is this width and this height, because when you are working with your page, there's some time you know the specific height and the width of the element that you want to work with. You know the size of that element, so you don't just want it to expand, because by default any element that you have, most of them, they will expand according to the browser. As you can see now, since we have enough space now, it covers up the entire box. But this is not how you want it to be when you are dealing with some element. Or look at all this one, see they maintain a specific size. The same thing with this button too. It only contains the size of the content that is inside it. But what if I want it to be more than this? I don't care about the text that is inside it. I want it to be of a specific size, whether the height of it or the width of the box. So we can change this thing by using the width and the height property. And again too, it has some other variants like this max width, max height, mean width, and makes the mean height, because there's sometimes you know the maximum, but you don't really know exact size, but you know that this thing must not go past this particular size that you want to give it. That's where all this main max comes in there. So there is no like your nutrition. This thing can be between 10 and 20, or it can be between the 0 to 200, but it must not be more than 200. That's max. Or the minimum size you must have on this box is 200, so it must not go less than 200. That's where the main comes in, because there are some places that this element, you don't care about what is there. The minimum width of it should be this. So which means that thing can expand from whatever the size you gave it, but it can't go less than that particular value that you specify. And this thing will always come in different places where you need to make sure that your element maintain a particular size like that. Look at the same button that we have here is still the same button that we are using here like this. The difference between them is that one now, the size has been changed, which is something we can do too. For example here, we can just call our button, I want to give it width. So I don't care about the text that is inside you. Anytime you are using width, this will always maintain this size that you put inside. For example, 200 pixels here, and you know pixels doesn't change. So which means this box or this button, the size here will always be 200. Whether you're on a big screen or small screen, or it will always be that particular size. But you know that there are some units you can use that change based on the screen. So if you use all this one, you know it will recalculate the value, but the weight will still be whatever you specify. So instead of me using this one now, what I can just use is 40 VW. You know, VW is talking about the viewport, so which means it will take 40% of the screen, as you can see here now. So if I reduce it, you see that the size is going to change because it's calculating 40% of the screen. So if I increase this stuff now, the button will keep increasing because the window is changing, and since window is changing, it will keep calculating the 40% of that window that we have there, and it's the width that we're talking about, so it will keep changing. But if it is definite value or the absolute value, no matter what you are doing, it will always maintain the size that you give to it. But that's not the major thing. The major thing here is that we are changing the width of the box. Just like the way we can change the width of the box, we can change the height too, because like sometimes you actually know the height of the box, like this image that is here now. So this image, this particular container here, and the one I gave you this specific height, because the thing will not know which height, or based on your design, you know that this is the, look at the height here now, when it's on a small screen, and when you get to bigger, as you can see that it's kind of different. So you need to be able to control how wide or how high is your content. The same thing, look at this box too. You see that this thing is not going more than a specific height, or something too can happen later, or maybe when we are adding, we are going to start to do this one when we get to the JavaScript part. So look at it, I'm adding this item. You see that to get to a point, can you see it's not going again? It now give you the scrolling stop. Even if you have more to it, it will never leave this height. It will always maintain that height. The only thing that will just happen is that this thing will now be scrolling. So how do you do something like this? This is where all these properties that you are seeing here comes in. It's a combination of all these properties here. This overflow, the max height, and yeah, so what is doing there is just max height on the stuff like that. So when you get to a particular height, I don't want it to move again, but it will cause a problem. You are going to see that problem there when we get to the stuff, when I'm explaining this overflow. And this overflow now is what we use here to make sure that this thing is not going outside of that container. It's giving you the scrolling and do like it, because I don't want the stuff to keep expanding anyhow. But the content that is here, if the content is now more than the container, it will cause problem. So what do? You talk to it that, okay, when the content is trying to go more than the container, just give all the scrolling stuff. And that's what the browser used to do for you by default. Anything you put inside the browser, once you see that it's more than the height of the box there, it will give you these scrolling stuff automatically. So how do you two now talk to your element to do something like that for you? That's where all this property comes in to simplify all this thing for you there. So you can increase the width or reduce the width, or increase the height or reduce the height, depending on the value that you are giving to your property. So the same thing here too, we can change the height of the box, which means this thing doesn't care about the content that is inside it. It will always maintain the height that you give to it. For example here, I want this thing to be 50 pixels like this, and once it, as you can see, the height of the box is going to be 50 px like this. Some of these things, when you want to have this kind of stuff, you can actually use your padding to achieve something like this. But when you know that this stuff is going to have a definite width and height, you can use all this one. But most of the time when we want to work with our button, you always see that we don't really work most on height. What you change is width most of the time, because the content can change. And and when the content change, you see that the thing will move to the next line, just like this way you see now. Look at the width or look at the height of this box, one this for this side, and when the now can you see that the height is changing. So if you put the height there, the stuff will not change dynamically like this again. It will maintain whatever you give to it, and most of the time you don't want it to happen like that. So for example here, let me just remove this one, or let me leave it like that and come here too and give it this height, and the height should just be let's say 40 pixels. So this thing doesn't care whether you're on a big screen or small screen, it will maintain that 40, but it can cause problem when you're on a small screen that doesn't have space to accommodate the content there. Can you see now the CSS is now causing problem, because by default if you don't do it, the browser is smart, he knows that it's supposed to increase the box to cover all the entire content, but once you change it, you are now in charge. So whatever you do, the browser will not do anything, which will now cause something known as overflow. So how do you solve this problem? That's where this overflow property comes in that we're going to talk about when we get there. So now, can you see there's a problem? This one now is now going, because we said it must not be more than 40. So it's only taking that 40. So this one now, the content cannot contain this stuff. So it has to move it to the next line. But the box is kind of too tiny for that text. So the thing will start going over other content, and that's what we call overflow. Once you have anything like this, it's known as a overflow. That is, the content inside the box is more than that size that you gave to it. It can be the width or the height, it can happen to both sides, and the overflow is what you can now use to control what is going to happen when the content is trying to go outside of box. So in order for us to satisfy this thing, you can just use a value that is bigger than the content that is inside it. So here we can use like this 100. Now everybody is happy, but when you go to a bigger screen now, you have excess space that you don't really need. So it's not something you'll be using every time. You only use it when you know that this thing will never change from this particular stuff that you gave, no matter the stuff that is going on there like that. So we have the height and we have the width. And again too, you have the mean or the max, which kind of specify that, okay, I know that you can change, but don't increase more than this, that is max. You know, that thing based on the screen, it will adjust the height. But I know that you're going to adjust the height, but don't go more than this. Anytime you see that something is good at this, stop at this particular height. That's where you'll be dealing with max. But again too, I know that your content can be this tiny, but I want you to maintain the minimum of this size before you can increase, but you can't go less than this particular value. So if the content is just one, because by default, you know, button will take the space of the content. So even though the content that is inside is just one character there, I still want you to maintain a minimum width of this 300 pixels, or I still want you to maintain the minimum of this particular number that you want based on the design. It's going to be based on the design, but it's still the same thing that is going to happen there like that. You can see here the width is like this, because on small screen we want it to be 1:1, but what are we using to do this one? When we are talking about display, you know how to do something. Like I say, they are now 3:3 on one line on a bigger screen, but on a small screen it is 1:1 item. You are not creating it different, it's still the same element, but the styling is changing based on the screen size, because as when you put 3 of them together on mobile, it's not possible, because the mobile is not that wide. But on big screen we have a lot of space. So instead of us putting them on top of each other one by one, we just arrange them side by side based on the screen that you are working on. And as you can see, this one too is not going more than a specific height, because this can expand a lot, and we don't want it to keep expanding anyhow. We apply what is known as max height. So that max height, and when you get to that height, it will just stop. So when it now stop, the content will start going outside of it. So how do we stop the content from going outside? That's where the overflow comes in. And overflow can happen on both X and Y. X is the horizontal one, and Y is the vertical one. So how do you deal with overflow? Let me go back to the HTML, and let's work with this paragraph, because it has a lot of content inside it. Yeah. So let me work on the paragraph that is inside this container. So let's target that. So inside a container, we have a p tag. So we want to give it a background color of red. I want to give it this color, so color should be white. So we need to apply padding so that we have enough space inside the box. I'm going to use 1 rem like this. So border radius, just to use what we've talked about. So this one is going to be 1 rem. Save, and as you can see, we have the p tag style like this. But there's going to be a problem when, can you see that the height has changed when it is on a small screen, like, because there is no space to accommodate everything on one line. So it needs to change the height of the box so that it can accommodate the content. But now imagine in our code we say the height should be something like 100 pixels. So if the content that is there is now more than this height, it will cause something known as overflow. Let me change the color so that we can see it, because the color is now close to the background there. So let me change the color to this because let me use yellow. Yellow should come out of this color. Yeah, so I want something that is going to work on, yeah, on the two of them, the whites or color riots. All right, this one should be okay. So you can see now, because the box will stop at 100, but the content is that even this thing is still small. So let me use 50. Assuming we are using 50, so let's use 50 because I took it. Can you see what is now going on now? This is what we call overflow, because you said the box must not, by default, what the browser will do is that it will increase the box so that there will not be anything like overflow. So since this stuff now stop at 50 and the content is more than that, there is something the browser will do. It will just overlap it on top of the other content, which is not what you want. So here now, you can see where the overlapping is happening. It's happening on the y-axis. So here we can use our overflow to control how it's going to happen. And as you can see, you can control x, or you can control y, or you can control the two of them at once. So majorly you only see overflow directly like this without talking about x. But there are some places you want to have different value for x and y. So you can call your overflow x or overflow y to change it. But here now, we have different value that you can use. What is there by default is this visible. So which means anything that is going outside of that box, just show it. But you know it will cause problems, which is overlapping. But sometimes you don't want to see anything that is going outside. You just want to cut them out. So we have hidden. You only see this in a lot on different sites where you have a box and you have another thing inside it. But there's some other thing that you don't want to go outside the box. So what you do, you use overflow over hidden. So anything that is trying to, they are still there. It's not that it's deleting the text. The text are still there, but it will hide them behind the stuff, which is something that you can do too in all this drawing app that you can power click in CorelDRAW or some other app. They call it different stuff, but here we call it this overflow of what? Hidden, which is going to hide content. It's not about the text alone. Anything that is inside it that is trying to go outside of it, it will cut them out. But what if you want to see, because like this one, this kind of app now, there's no way you'll be hiding the content that the user pick. You need to be able to see them, not that you want to cut them out, because this is where the height stop. And you know, if you scroll down now, all this one will be cut out. All this one here, from here, it will cut all of them. So how do you know the stuff that you pick? So that's wrong. So we want us to have this kind of a scrolling bar that we can use to scroll up or down, or scroll from left to right, depending on where you have your overflow like that. So yeah, instead of using this, we can use scroll. So when you use scroll, it's going to give you the bar. As you can see now, it is now on both the x and y. But you know there is nothing like x too, because there is no overflow on the x, so you will not see the handle. So for the y, so as you can see now, it gives us the handle to move from up and down. Even when you don't have the stuff, as you can see, it will still give you the stuff. Because to me, I don't think we have anything like overflow again after we've already moved into the base screen. So that's where this auto comes in. So with auto, it will be switching between that scroll or the normal one that you used to see before when the text is not overflowing there like that. So when you use auto now, can you see it disappear on the x, because there is no overflow on that x. Again too, in order for us to make it on the y too, we can just increase the stuff by 30 pixels, and as you can see, it's not coming out again. But now if you reduce the screen and it sees that the height is not up to it, it will not give you the scrolling, and that's what I'm using here for this side. When you don't have any item, at that time there is no need of showing the scroll. But once you get to that particular height and you see that the content is not trying to go outside, that's when it will not give you the stuff. Let me remove some of the product. The app is not running, that's why some of the icons are not showing. Can you see now? They are not 3. And since the 3 is no more than the maximum that is set up, there is no scrolling it, because there is no need of us seeing it since there is nothing to scroll. But once you add another item that can make this thing to scroll, then it will bring it the stuff. And what is going on there is this auto. So this one will be switching between this normal view and the scroll bar view based on whether there is enough space or no space there. And it can happen for both the X and Y. Right now for this one, it's only for the Y, because we did not specify the width, so it will increase based on the browser that you have. But you know that if you change the width too, maybe for example we use the width of let's say 100 pixels like this. So if there is no space, it's going to give us on the it still move the content down, but we can actually make this thing by make sure that all the text they are on one line by using this word wrap. Let me see, because that's what the browser is doing by default. No, yeah, white space, because the browser will see it. What it's doing is you can see that there is a space between this off and D, so I can break it down, or we can talk to it, or there's some word that I cannot break. It will move them on one hand. Some of the word it cannot break is a link. That link they are together. You can't just break it anywhere. So it doesn't know where to cut it to move it to the next line. It will just leave them like that. So we have this. Let me put the link so that one will be clearer. So inside the box, let me just go there. Where is the P that we're working with? So this is the P, and the top we just say go to https www.unknown.site testing here plus there whatever stuff chat. The thing is the same link together like that. Can you see now? So it cannot break that link. So since it cannot break it, it has to make it of that side. So now we have it on the this one, because by default all this type of text the browser can actually move them to the next line, because you see that they are different words, so it will break it. But the link, you can't just break it here, you can't just break it here, so it will just leave the stuff, because it will just say that's one word, and since it's one word the browser will leave it like that. And once the browser leave it like that, it will see that the stuff is more than the width that was specified. So since it's more than that, then it gives us the horizontal one, because we are using auto. So, and since it's overflow, it's not just talking about the X or Y, it's talking about the two of them or any one of them that have the text more than what we are expecting added. So this is how this thing work. Overflow is what you use to control the text that you have there like that. So remove this, and now if you remove this one too, you see that the text is trying to go outside. So but if you put overflow, you see that it's going outside. I see the Y one is not there because we've removed the definite height that we put in, so it will increase based on the content. But the X, because of that link, is trying to go outside, because you can't just break the link anyhow. So you have to use some CSS property to tell it how to break all this one, because it will not break the link by default, but you can still break it by using all these word the word break, and then you tell it how to break the stuff and it's going to cut it out. It doesn't care, it will just cut it anyhow. Anywhere you see that the thing is trying to go outside, it's cut it at that place and move it to the next line. But for now we don't care about that, because this is what we are after here, which is this overflow. And as you can see, the application here that I show you, and you only see it a lot on sites where you need to have a definite height or width on the box and you don't want the other thing to scroll. So what you use here is, can you see here too? So those are what they are using here. So because there's a lot of content here, but the height is from here to here, and the content that is inside it is more than that. So what do? You do overflow of auto. You should always use auto. The only time you use scroll is when you know that. You can use scroll too when you always know that the content there will always be more than that box. You are sure, so you can just use scroll. For that one, you know that it will always be there, because with that scroll, whether the content is more or not, it will always show the bar. So let me put it back so that you see. So that can you see now that auto is not showing the stuff because there is no need of showing it. We can see all the content already. But with that scroll, whether you can see the content or you cannot see it, it will always show the bar. You can see the bar is there, even though they are useless because you cannot use them, but it will still show them. So that's the advantage of auto over the scroll. But if you know that that thing will always be more than the container, just use scroll directly, because you know that it will always be there. But if you know that it's sometimes it will be there, sometimes it will not be there, auto is the best one for that, because it will be switching for you, not that you'll be the one that will be doing it yourself. So the content is more, so they have to use overflow. So if you check the code that is there, you are going to see somewhere they are using overflow and they are using height and width, because they don't want that thing to go more than the specific width that they specify there. Like that, is this a box? Okay, this is a section like this. So it's still loading the CSS while their site slow like this. So somewhere can you see? So the height, no, this is even not inside it. That's where we're going to have the container somewhere. Where is the actual container? They actually design it themselves. They do their own design, which is crazy. How will you design something that is part of the browser? But I guess maybe they want to change the color, but you can actually change the color too. Not our own. It was showing this kind of a grayish color that is here. You can actually change it like that. So which is, you can change it with CSS instead of you designing your own that they are doing on their site like this. So it's just waste of typing. The CSS have it. You don't need to start doing the stuff yourself. So this is how this works there. So all this story I say, like the background, the radius, everything that we talked about, they are being used on this page because it's a common stuff that you always deal with. So it's common that you always do, because everything you have on the page, they are just boxed to CSS. So, and these are the properties you always use every time. The spacing inside the box, is this the height or the width of the box, or is this the spacing outside of the box, or is it the radius or the curve of the box, and so forth like that. So you always, or the border, which is this line. This is not the color that the browser used to use. So they change it to their own color, and they can even update it based on whether you are inside it or not, which you'll be dealing with focus and so forth like that. So it all depends on the side. So each side have the way they handle their stuff. So going to this free pick too, I think this side too is using something like that, because they have some content by the left side too that they don't want it to go outside. So they limit the height of the box, but the content that is inside it can be more than that. So what do? You do overflow on the box. So what's wrong with their site? So you only see it a lot on there. So we have under the box proper, we have the margin, padding, border, radius. You have this outline. So what is this outline? This is the line you will see anytime you use tab to move to your element, or you are inside the input. Where you see most of the time is this input. So this line you are seeing here, and this is not border. This is what we call outline. That one is always at the end of your border. So it's the one that on top, it always cover the border. That's why you see that line now has disappeared. We are not seeing this one. This is border. See that the color of that one is like a grayish color, but the outline is having this black color. What we use outline for is to denote that you are on a particular, you are kind of giving a visual representation that, okay, user is kind of on this element. Because right now you can see that, okay, I'm inside this input. You can actually do it on all this your button too, but where you get that one is through the tab, which you can see. So it's telling you that currently you are moving from one element to another one, and the one you are on right now is this one. So where you normally see it when you are not using tab is your input, anything that you can type inside. So it will bring out the outline, and you can now change the styling, because right now it's showing this black color,
assuming your company now is using a separate color, like this GG now, you see that they have a branding color of this green, and you want to work on your site, you know, you are going to have a form of branding, whatever. So like this side, you can see the branding color here. Every site have their own, or every company have their branding color, and you don't want to be using different color on your site, because that thing speaks volume to your site too time. When you see Facebook, or when you see the color of it, you already know what is going on. So you don't just build things anyhow. So it's the same thing to you now. You want to work on your site and you want to use the branding color for the effect that shows here. So you need to be able to change that color from the black. And the way it works right now, on this browser is showing black. On some browser it is going to show blue. It depends on how each browser implements their own setting. For example, here copying this, they have Firefox here. This one will still be the same thing because all of them, they are using the same engine. All of them are using Chrome. Behind the scene, they are just Chrome browser there. So paste this one and run it. We should still have some kind of a same view. As you can see, it's still showing black. But if you use Firefox or some other browser, you are going to see that the color that they are using for outline is different. So which means it will be different based on the browser that the user is using. And you don't want that thing to be like that. You want it to be like the same thing across the browser, because the way one browser will display something for you might be different from another browser depending on what they are running there. But you want everything to be the same, so we can change the outline just like the way you can change border. So it will follow the same property like border. So when you have the border that you're going to be doing 2 pixels solid red like this, so instead of us having this, what we can do is to change it to outline like that. But I don't want it to be like this. What I want to do is to happen on this my input there. So how do I bring it in? So we can target our input. So we have this input, and this input here, I only want this because the only time it's coming out is when you are inside, is when you focus on the input. So you can target the style for this one, which we talked about that time when we are dealing with the selector. So when my input is focused, I want something to happen, because what is there before is that it's using something else. But now, as you can see, it has changed the outline. Can you see that other thing is still there? The border is different from outline. Outline is always on top of the border. So, and again, another thing with outline and border is that outline doesn't take space. As you can see, it doesn't occupy its own space. But border, when you apply it, it will take space. So if there's any content beside it and there is no space in the parent, it will shift that one outside of the way. So that's another advantage over border. But most of the time what you use is border. But outline, it's always on top of the border there, like that. It's always on top of it. So click, then you show the right, and if I want, I can remove the color of my border when I'm on top of it. So border color should be transparent, so which means I don't want to see any border color anytime it's inside. It's only the line, which can change to your branding color. Or if you don't want the outline itself, you just want to change the border color, what you can do here is just to say that outline is none, like that. So which means we don't want any outline. The border is just going to be maybe orange red is your brand color, so you just apply the whatever color. So anytime you are there now, it will just change to that color as the border there, like that. What did I use? Border color, yes. What did I use as border at the top? I did not change it at the top yet, so that's why it's giving me one kind black stuff. So what I can just do here directly, border is 1 pixels solid. And you're going to see that one that I mentioned, that this one used to increase size. Can you see something? You see that this box reduced. Can you see now that it's shifting the element? Look at this button. Can you see that it shifts? After leaving there, it goes back. So when you increase border, it used to take space. But when it is outlined, that one doesn't take space. It just focus on that box and expand for that place. It will overlap. So which means that one used to overlap. Its own job is to overlap, but border, it will create its own space. It doesn't overlap anything. It will shift every other element beside it and make sure that it covers its own space. So which means here, when you want to work with border, always make sure that they are of the same size before it change to another one. If they are not of the same size, this is where you be having this kind of a shift, because it's to be shifting the other element out of the way, because by default the browser is not using 1 pixels that I use it. So in order for us to make sure that this thing is not shifting there, by default the input you have a border width of 1 pixels like this. So save, or let me just complete everything because I only change the width, I did not change the color. That's why you can see some strange stuff happening. See that at the top here, look like using take. This one is doing some stupid stuff there. So let's just apply the stuff directly. So 1 pixels, then solid whatever the color you want to use, or for example here black or gray or anything. As you can see now, it's going to maintain itself. Now if you go inside, there is no shift because it's still using the same size. The size matter. If you change the size, it will increase the box and it will shift every other element beside it so that it can have its own space. So if I change it to 6 now, this thing will increase, and once it's increased, it will shift them. It's not like the outline that is going to cover them. So let's change it to outline and you see the difference. And when it is outlined, so here let me just hit it to outline like that. So save. So if you go back there now, can you see that one is just overlap? It's not like it's creating its own space. Border will create its own space, but outline doesn't create space. It will just overlap, which means it can just go to other elements if there is no enough space. But this 6 is too small, it's too big there rather, because there is nobody that will be using this 6 whatever stuff. Highest you only see this 2. Because you just want a simple line, just like the way you are seeing it on every side. You won't see much space around it. You only see just tiny space. That's what you will, the tiny line is what you will always see every time. How is it going to their login page? So again too, if you check every other side, the line is always tiny, which is the same thing you are seeing here. See that this line that you are seeing here, this is border. The same thing, some of them are this orange while some are green, but behind the scene, what is going on there is just border property that to apply that stuff. Anytime you want to put line around the edge of the box, what you always use is just the border to apply the, as you can see, border 1 pixel solid whatever stuff. By default it's not using this, so anything that is gray out, it means the browser is not using them. The one that is using is the one that display correctly. Anything that gray out or it's draw the line, it's telling you that it's not using that stuff at all like that. But this is not what I want. Where is the container itself? So it's a container that, so that this is the container there like that. So where is their border? Where did they apply border? Where is the CSS for border? Is it not the container? How many containers? No, that's not the container. This is the container. So where is your border? Where did you pick the border from? Front. So under the computer, let me see what is using for border. Where is it? Which element did they use? Let me check inside. Okay, it is this A. I don't want to click the A. So this is where they put it. So go back to the style, scroll up. Can you see 2 pixels solid? Their color, the branded color that they are using. And as you can see, this one is not needed. I don't know why they put this one, because by default the height is auto, which means it will increase based on the content that is inside it. But if you change it to a definite height, it can cause problem where the thing will now start overlapping inside the stuff like that. Again to this flex direction, those are the stuff we'll be talking about in the next class. As you can see, there is one place that they are setting the height. When we're going to talk about this media query later on, this is what we call responsiveness here, because you want this thing to behave differently on different screen size there like that. So for example, if I enter this stuff and it will go down into the reload, because they are using some kind of server-side rendering, so you have to reload the page before you can see the mobile view. Now if you reload, it will change and it will show you in a way that it's meant for the mobile screen like that. But this their side is too slow, but it's not even fast on this network. So go back to free pick and you see that they are doing some of these things too. When you perform a search, for example, I'm looking for AI image or anything that you're looking for. Once you go to their search page, as you can see, there is this scroll bar, and because the content that will be there will be more than what they said, so you need to be able to scroll down, because this you can even expand. As you can see, you can expand each one of them. So you don't want the other thing to cut out when you expand out. So what do? You use overflow and you apply it based on, I don't know whether they're using auto or they're using scroll, but more in a modern, the one we're using is auto, because that one is smart. It will handle when there is space and when there is no space. So that's the advantage of that one instead of you doing it. And as you can see that the way this is now being arranged, it's like it's different. So this is what we call responsive design, because there is no space to put them side by side. So the thing is gone. So how do you bring them in? You have to start using their menu and a lot of whatever they set up to bring out some item out. And you see the way it is now. So everything that was here before is now like this. It's still the same thing, as you can see that I still have that scrolling stuff because we don't have enough height, or they've already said that the height should be this. But if there is any other content inside it that is going outside, just give us this scrolling that we can actually inspect. So inspect it, this is it here, and if you inspect it, can you see overflow auto? But that's the best. What you always use is auto, because that one is smart. It will handle it for you instead of you doing the stuff yourself, because like sometimes the content might not up to this, so you don't want the thing to show that stuff. So just auto the stuff. And again too, every other property, all this thing can, by now you know that this is border going on there. So if you inspect it, the color of this thing, and again that green means padding, which is the spacing inside the box. So if you look at this stuff here now, you are going to see that it have padding top, padding bottom that they apply there. Then which other thing that is there, we have our border color, which is what is here. Again, can you see the border width? I don't know why they are separating it, because they are applying some different classes there, but it's something you can combine the two of them together, but it's being separated here, just like what we've talked about. You can separate them. It's not a must that they have to be together like that. So if you like, you can just call the border style or the border width directly yourself. So you can call any one of them in case you need to change particular one there. But if you want to change all of them at once, it's better you just use border directly and apply the style on the element. As you can see, all these boxes, they are not just expanding anyhow, because they have some kind of weight on them, or they have some specific display that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. So tomorrow we're going to be focusing on display property, because it's very important. Like, before you can start joining them together, this display is very important. If you look at this, some elements are here, why this image by this side, and they are side by side. How do you do something like, again, if I change this display now to mobile or something, you see that the design might change, because that thing cannot fit on that particular screen. So it will change to the way they put their design. As you can see now, they are now on top of each other. On a big screen, you have it side by side. On a small screen, you now have them on top of each other, because putting them side by side is not going to look nice on a small screen. So how do you do all those things? That's where the layout stuff comes in. And how do you do layout? You need to know about display properties. So we have different display property that you can use. We're going to start from the simple one, which is the inline. We talked about the block. We talked about the inline block before we now move to the major one for display. So the one you see that all the sites are using is either be this flex or grid, because they are kind of like easier to work with when you are dealing with layout. So if I inspect the code that is wrapping everything here, it will either be flex or the grid, depending on which one they want to use. But majorly, when you need to put something on top of each other or move it side by side, flex is best for that. But when you need to deal with rows and column, grid is best for that. I mean, you need to control both the rows and column at the same time. Grid is best for that. But you can use grid too to do what flex can do. Just that that's waste of typing, because flex is really easier to work with when you are dealing with. So where is the container that owns all this? Okay. So if you check where they are using the display, as you can see, this is block here, but this is not the one I want. This is not the one I want. The one that actually hold all of them. Yes, so this is content, this is the art. Yeah, there is something that is wrapping them there like that. So where are you? The one I'm looking for, because that's the one that is going to put them the way it's supposed to be. So now this is the one.
can be the body. This is the app. This is the alt app. Yeah, can you see? So, because anytime you want to put something on top of each other or put them side by side, flex is the best for display because it has some properties that you can use to quickly talk to what is inside it, to go side by side or to be on top of each other. So, and as you can see, they are targeting a particular screen. So when you're on that particular screen, it goes back to flex. But when you're on a small screen, it goes to the block. So what is block? What is inline? All those ones we're going to talk about them tomorrow. So by the time you want to do anything like this, you already know which CSS property to put. That's the reason we need to talk about them, because I don't just want to go into design and I'll start using some property to now look somehow there like that. So we want to know about them, and when you see a design, you already know, okay, this is the property I need to use at this particular place, because that's the reason why we're going to be using some of the predefined design that we have there. So, oh, this design we want to work on, you see the element, okay, these are supposed to arrange the HTML so that we'll be able to apply this particular CSS to make it look in this way. So once we are done with our display property, the other one I'm going to skip them for now, because these are the basic one we need to know first. Then we now go into the actual design. But when we get to some places, there's some other property that I've not talked about that will not start bringing them in, like this positioning property. For example, like what you see on this side, that time, see that when we're on small screen, if you click on this thing, you see that all this one, they are now overlapping the other content. This is what we call positioning, because you can move your element to anywhere on the page. Or you can even say the shoes, kind of a stick, as you can see that it's not moving from this side. So you can do all these things by using property known as a position property. So, but for now, we'll skip it because it's not the major thing that we need. The display is what we need. But once we get to design that requires something like this, then I will now bring in position property. Because without positioning property, you cannot do something like this. Position property is what you are going to use to make sure, can you see at the top? What you are going to use is position. Anytime you see something like this, it is position. But which type of position? I will now explain different types, because we have absolute, we have fixed, and a lot of them like that. So we have sticky, we have static, which is the default one. We have absolute, and we have fixed. So, and when do you use them? So when we get to the design, you see where you are going to use absolute, when to use fixed, when to use sticky, and so forth like that. So that's how it works. That's when anytime you see any design like this, so that the thing is on, just know that it's positioning property, or something is being moved to one and it's still the same thing here too. Anything that needs to pop out in that is not part of, like where you place it, that's not the way it's not being placed on the page. You have to use position property. There's nothing you want to do with that position. All this one you cannot deal with it with that position. You have to use positioning property. If not, can you see where is it safe? I saw it now. So there's nothing you want to do that will not do, but we have different types. You know, there is absolute, there is fixed. I will explain each one of them when we get to that part. But for now, we're going to talk about the display, and after the display, we enter a proper design. Because the difference between you know properties and you know how to lay out your page. You must know how to lay out your HTML in a way that will make your CSS to arrange them properly. If you don't arrange your HTML properly, then there's somewhere some of these properties that we want to talk about tomorrow are going to work. So, because it's based on arrangement. If the arrangement is not in the right order, then it will not work. So we're going to talk about them. And you can see from here, anytime you need something like this, you can actually use grid for here. Where you know that per each row, you want to have this total number of columns, then you can use grid. But this one is not simple because, as you can see, the thing is not balanced. Here, the three are okay, but the one by this side is not. So you can still use grid too, but it's going to be a mixture of grid and flex that you join together to have this kind of a powerful layout that is going on here. So we're going to start with the basic one tomorrow, and you see which is what is going on here, because I use grid for this one because we know that for each line we want to have 33, and just arrange the row yourself. But for each line, I want to have these 33 blocks there like that. So, and if you look at this one, you see that this text is here and this one by the other side. This is flex. It makes it easier to put things side by side and arrange them the way you want. So we're going to see all this in action tomorrow there. So that's going to be all. Stop